All right. Well, Stephanie, it's so great to have you. Thank you for taking the time here. Looking forward to hearing more about you and your business. Before I try to attempt at a proper introduction, I'll let you share a little bit more about your background and who you are, and looking forward to hearing more about impact finance.
Fantastic. So great to be with you, Lauren. My name's Dr. Stephanie Gripne. A lot of people call me Dr. Steph. Please call me Steph. And I have been working in the financial markets since really, I started my real estate investing career back in 2000 to 2005, and I was a graduate student. And my dad came to live back with me, and we developed an affordable housing program helping families go through medical bankruptcy. And I just love doing transactions. So I stepped away from a career in natural resources. My master's degree is in mathematical ecology and my PhD is in forest economics. And I decided I wanted to do transactions and deals. And so hundreds of deals later, I've lost track, probably have done 300 to 500 transactions. I first did deals, and a lot of it started with conservation real estate and funds. And then I joined a $100 million private equity fund. And so I went from, like most of us do, of doing individual transactions. You're like, wait, that's not enough. I want to do more. And that's funds. And then I was like, wait, funds aren't moving enough money. And I want to fix the system. And so I was recruited to be a professor at University of Colorado Lead School of Business in 2012. And I was the director for the Initiative for Sustainable Real Estate and the finance professor. And I also had a position within the University of Colorado Real Estate Foundation. And that's where my journey started in the last chapter. And I just asked myself, I said, why isn't the money moving? There's all of these amazing human beings that have access to resources, they're intelligent, they're mission aligned, and the money's stuck. And why is it stuck? And I came up with a couple of hypotheses of why it was stuck. And a big part was what we called non-conflicted investor education, and people that would provide individuals and organizations with investment education that from an organization that wasn't trying to raise a fund or become your investment advisor. And so that was my bet back in 2010 to 12, and I've been doing that ever since.
And then with that bet, is that what spun off, Impact Finance Center, or share a little bit more about how that got running?
Yeah, when I was a professor from 2010 to 12, I realized quickly it wasn't the real estate that was interesting. It was the innovative financial thinking we were doing. And now, and it's only recently in the last year, I've realized, you know what, I'm actually just a restoration ecologist in the financial markets, which is really combining my natural resource background with my financial day-to-day job. And I realized a couple of things. We don't think about a grant dollar, or if you're in a Fortune 100 company, a marketing dollar, a corporate social responsibility dollar, and an HR dollar, or a research and development dollar as having a financial return. We think of it as an expense. Mm-hmm. And when in fact, the financial return is negative 100% loss, which means when we coach the Walton Family Foundation to do a negative 50% return investment for $500,000, I can make a case that that's an above market rate investment at 50% versus giving your money away at negative 100% loss. And so this concept is what we refer to as full spectrum capital, that we actually have enough money to do what we would do if we would, instead of me personally taking $1 and donating it over here, $1 of investing it with a friend and lending money at 2%, $1 that I would invest in the stock market, instead of, if I didn't break those dollars up into 3 different organizations, but kept them for one organization, I would take $1 at negative 100%, $1 at 2%, and $1 at 6%. That would give me $3 at negative 31% return. And that's the return we need to do the deep impact work to solve our wealth gap and help build community wealth and grow wages in this country while kind of healing our environment at the same time. And so I think of myself as basically, if money is like a river and flowing, as my ecology background would say, I'm helping that flow get unstuck and keep flowing. So I learned that there was full spectrum capital, learned that there needed to be nonprofit entities teaching this work that weren't trying to get something from somebody. Then that these people with money and organizations with money are really smart, but they're in T-ball. And right now, when we ask them to write a $250,000 check to invest in affordable housing in Kansas City, they've never written a check like that before. That's like asking you and me to go start swinging at the Kansas City Royals batter box at 95-mile-an-hour fast pitches without ever having gone through T-ball. So we realized there was a need for T-ball, that's learning by doing, this full spectrum capital, and that the teaching should be non-conflicted. When I had those three ahas, I remember the sinking feeling, and I thought, wait a minute, every entrepreneurship center in the United States at every university needs one of this curriculum. Otherwise, we're just building one side of the marketplace. And then you take a step back and you're like, wait, every university needs these classes and curriculum and this thinking, this mindset shift to save themselves. And then you take a step back and you realize individual money is organized in YPOs and community foundations, and there's all these associations of money, and you realize everybody needs this curriculum. But at the time, there was only 15 centers in financial innovation and impact investing. And that's when I realized, okay, let's create a nonprofit, which really starts off as a multi-university academic center. So we'll create a community asset of classes, online, in-person, one-on-one small group learning, and partner with universities and other associations of money so we could bring that education to them.
Very good. Is that related at all to, I noticed you have a number of clubs as a part of Impact Financial Center. Is there a direct relation to that work, or is that separate?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Colorado, we built what we call our first marketplace impact days in 2016 to 18, and this was, I'll be honest, a midlife crisis project. A big foundation and university had come into Colorado because we had two billionaires locally that wanted to invest. And they told us we, for lack of a better word, didn't have shovel-ready projects. We didn't have impact investments, projects, nonprofits, small businesses, startups, and funds that were investor ready. And they call that a capital absorption problem. And I had done a couple hundred deals at this point. And I thought they wouldn't know a deal if it sat up next to them, pulled a chair up and sat next to them. And so I convinced my team and 34 people to form a steering committee. And we came up with a 3-year goal to catalyze $100 million locally into good things. And those are projects, nonprofits, small businesses, startups, funds, and co-ops. We ended up, it got a little out of control as a community project. We did 200 education events in person.
Holy smokes. Wow.
After we would do 70 of them, we would rent out a big hotel. I literally almost went personally bankrupt because I put all this on my credit card and the hotel thing.
Wow.
And then we would do a 3-day education event, which we called Colorado Impact Days. And we would literally set up 60 to 100 investment opportunities like a farmer's market. And we activated over 3 years, 85 investors.
Wow.
And we brought existing investors to the table, and we just introduced lovely, amazing people raising capital and having money to invest to one another. And after 3 years, we've catalyzed over 300 million. We've lost count. It's probably $300 to $500 million of a capital.
Wow.
And we proved that more money will flow if you focus on activating investors and creating the farmers market. And after that, several of our amazing nonprofit lenders and CDFIs, which are community financial development institutions in Colorado, they were like, wait, you're done with the pilot for 3 years? I'm like, yes, we're done with the pilot for 3 years. And they're like, but you still have to raise this money. And we're like, we're not an investment bank. That's not what we do. But we realized we could take a bodega out of the marketplace and just the CDFIs and nonprofit lenders, which we call our Main Street lenders, and create an investor club. And the first one was supposed to be in person, and then the pandemic hit. So we kind of went from an in-person farmers market at a hotel to a Sears Roebuck catalog online. And so we call the investor clubs are essentially bodegas of a larger subset. And And the bodegas took off. We ended up having the federal government call us, several foundations, membership organizations call us when the pandemic hit and say, can you help us raise capital? And so if a governor calls me and says, what's the one thing I can do to get money flowing? Most people think the answer is to start a fund. And we're like, nope. First thing, create a marketplace, a small one, a bodega, or a big one, Impact Days. If you can only do two things, Kansas and Colorado have 100 to 200,000 millionaires. You need to go identify them, educate them, and activate them to invest in Kansas and Colorado. And because 1% of wealth in Colorado is $5 billion. If we could teach people in Kansas and teach people in Colorado to invest in Kansas and Colorado, we have plenty of money. And then the third thing is only when those investors are so happy with abundant joy of seeing the marketplace, they're like, wait, there's so many good things to invest in. Then you build a fund and a wrapper out of investor demand, not out of hope and wish that we had that investment capital.
Do you mind just speaking a little bit more to, because you said invest specifically back in states, right? If it's Colorado or Kansas, what's the thinking behind that?
So great question. I'm still a geeky academic at heart. And so sociology, we break the world into a community of place. Mm-hmm. And so that's a geography, a community of interest, and a community of identity. And interest could be regenerative agriculture, sustainable forestry. Identity could be women, people of color, indigenous, as an example. I think what's also interesting and what we learned, and I'm a recovering economist also, in my earlier days, is that if you would have given me a list, and right now, a list of give me 1,000 people that would be the first impact investors in the state of Kansas, and done that for me in Colorado, I would have gotten an F- on that test. The first 155 people who've stepped up to invest in Colorado in different communities of interest and identity were not the people I would have thought they would have stood up and raised their hand. So I learned I couldn't predict who the early adopters were. And then when somebody calls me with 10 million, 100 million, $1 billion and says, Stephanie, can you educate us on impact investing? I also have a difficult time predicting where they want to start because we have over close to 100 tools across your governance, your philanthropy, your direct investing, or your public investments. And so I have to ask them back, well, like, what are you thinking? When you say impact investing, are you talking about evaluating your investment advisor and upgrading your governance and doing investment beliefs and evidence-based decision attribution evaluation? Are you talking about your public markets and impact with ESG? Are you talking about direct investing in Kansas or actually trying to make your philanthropy more efficient? And so I think what we realized when we were in Colorado is we didn't have a deep bench in any community of interest, place, or identity. And so a lot of people suggested, Stephanie, just pick environment or just pick early childhood to start the marketplace with. Like, don't be so big. And I said, the problem is, let's say, Lauren, you had this awesome tech startup to help out women and children. The thing is, in Colorado, 2 or 3 of your investors might invest in you because you're a woman-led startup. 2 or 3 might invest in you because you're a technology startup. 2 or 3 might invest in you because you're supporting children. We didn't have 20 deep in any one of those. And so we needed to kind of build the big tent in order to find, there's what people said they were before they showed up at the hotel and said, oh yeah, I want to do women in social justice. And then they get excited about regenerative agriculture when they're there. And so, it's interesting. I oftentimes get asked the question from social ventures about, what are the investors looking for? As if it's dark chocolate or milk chocolate. And I have to remind them that you yourself are this incredible, unique piece of chocolate in a box of chocolates. You're the caramel nougat, dark chocolate, salted one. And your friend doing something similar is the cherry milk chocolate one. And guess what? The investors are the same way. And so the best thing for all of us in Colorado, Kansas, around the country to do is really get clear on what type of chocolate we are in that box of chocolates and communicate that out to the world. So the social venture chocolates can bind the investor chocolates and vice versa.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Aligning purpose and and all of that. So can you I'd love to hear a little bit more because you're doing so much in this space, right? And you've been able to really move the needle in different ways. What do you feel like is something that you're doing that is that you've already done or you're in the process of doing that you feel like is perhaps disrupting the industry or is kind of challenging maybe the status quo of how things have been done in the past?
That's a great question. There's a new service tool we're rolling out right now. We refer to as a philanthropic opportunity scan. And we piloted this 3 or 4 times, but we just did the first one with the Gilson Family Foundation. And I'm excited about this because one of the more difficult conversions we have to get people excited about investing is donors. And people get confused about us a little bit. If you're an investor, you think, oh, they're helping donors become impact investors, but we do just as much work with investors to make them impactful. It's having you look at both sides of the equation. But the cool part about the philanthropic opportunity scan is that the math and the money can sometimes get overwhelming to people and confusing. And so in this case, we're really talking about making your philanthropy more efficient from a sources and uses analysis. So you can say, hey, program officer, hey, donor, just tell us what you love and what you give to. And they might say something like partial scholarships, school facilities, economic development, and hospices. Mm-hmm. And you say, okay, you're giving that young, amazing person an $8,000 scholarship, which is awesome, out of your negative 100% money, when they have a $70,000 student loan at 10% interest. Mm-hmm. You've had a tax incentive since 1969 to give that student a $78,000 student loan at 1% out of your donor advised fund or foundation. You'll get 101% return plus a tax deduction, mm-hmm. and you'll save that student more than the $8,000 you're giving them. Mm-hmm. And I think the fact that 50 to 100% of our philanthropy could be restructured to make the nonprofit better off and the foundation and donor advised fund or donor better off is a really rich learning opportunity to onboard a whole cohort of people that might say, oh, I don't do that. I'm a donor. They're investors. And so we're super excited about that new tool that's coming out.
Well, and what's the timeline on that project?
It's live and going well. We just did our first one yesterday, and this week, this month. And so it's a simple process, and we're a nonprofit, so we make all of our tools and structures available to everyone.
Oh, congratulations. That's very exciting. It's exciting to hear about too. Yeah. And then, what makes you the proudest to be able to work in the space and to do the work that you do?
Oh, that's a great question. We do our work. We spend 85% of our time teaching those with resources how to invest in the people leading projects, nonprofits, small businesses, startups, and funds to save the world. And so the most heartbreaking thing I do is we hear from 50 to 100 of those people a month and saying, can you help us raise money? And we say, oh, we have a pro bono 2 hours of a month, and we'll help you as much as we can, but how we help you is by training and activating the money to do this. And so that's a long-term play. And there are a select group of amazing leaders all over the country and even the Americas that we're supporting, such as Anasa Troutman in Memphis, or Ricardo Roca in Denver, Colorado, or Christina Hollenbach with the Justice Capital Initiative. And these are just extraordinary human beings. Anasa, for example, is in Memphis, and she wrote a musical for Martin Luther King's 50th anniversary. And then local community members asked her if she would stay and actually find a way through some miracle to purchase historic Claiborne Temple and continue Reverend Lawson and Martin Luther King's vision and dream of doing community wealth building. So when you get to support somebody like Anasa and kind of continue the arc of history in that way and her story in that way, it's pretty extraordinary. You can, when you're in Memphis among civil rights leaders and leaders in the religious community and the creative community, and I'm getting chills right now when I think about it. It's just, you're doing your part to help weave together a new path for history.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And I love to be able to hear it from you firsthand as well. So you can tell that you're passionate about it, and just hearing the narrative, not only of the work that you've done, but how all your background, all blends together as well. So, um, and with that, teaching and being a part of so many projects, what do you do to just stay sharp, to be able to stay relevant with everything going on?
Uh, this is interesting. The pandemic was really good for me. I used to live on a plane, and the pandemic, like all of us, forced us to be still. And for me, I'm starting to write 3 books. I'm teaching myself to play piano. I'm doing a lot of road biking and cycling. I'm doing a race this weekend. I was able to do a little bit of, I love partner dancing. That was the heartbreak for me during the pandemic, was not being able to partner dance, but I've been able to go a couple of times as the pandemic got better. I think getting out of my mind and getting in nature and moving my body are key to staying sharp. And I should also give incredible kudos to the others in our space that are system entrepreneurs that could be, raising $1 billion fund and making a lot of money, and we're choosing to fix the system. And whether that's Taz James at Full Spectrum Capital Partners, or Lenny Libis at Realize Impact and Pledge and Investor Flow. And I count myself as extremely fortunate to be able to work with some of the best minds of our time that are working to fix the system.
Oh, no, that's wonderful. And you answered my question about the dance piece. I was gonna ask, because where did that fit in? So,
it's funny because it wasn't until I took a CEO test called the Berkman,
mm-hmm.
and I actually went to school for science for 12 years for my undergrad and graduate degree. And in the Berkman, it's a test for CEOs, and it has, for me, science is one of the lowest scored aptitudes that I have. And tied for first was persuasion, and tied for second was music and service.
Oh.
And I didn't really identify as being musical. I was the scholar athlete jock in high school and college. So I captained 3 sports, and I joke that I didn't even know where the tryouts were for drama or theater or anything else like that. And after taking that test, I was like, I do love music. And I started writing songs, and I'm white girl with no rhythm, and it didn't matter. I just love partner dancing so much that I started doing it 3 to 4 nights a week, and getting good at it. And it remains my great passion. And I do love giving talks on stage, which is a lot like acting and drama. So I've been very fortunate in my 40s to discover something that was, I think, always in me, but I didn't realize was in me.
Mm-hmm. No, and I agree. Those are, it's so important too, as you mentioned earlier, to be able to free your mind and move your body, to be able to have that white space to think creatively and do your best work. So I'm glad you've been able to slip it in a little bit more now that things are, hopefully they continue on the upward swing. So, but wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
What I will share is this. We teach a lot of couples and brothers and sisters and families with a lot of resources right now. And I love this analogy. I have a couple that love backcountry skiing, and the fact is, if you have resources and you care about making the world a better place, it is now possible to align your money. It's painful, I won't lie. It's like going on a backcountry ski slope, but it is now possible to do it. And so if your investment advisor says you can't do it, or somebody says, oh, it's this or this or this, you need to find somebody else. And if you're open to going on that adventure, as I told this couple I work with, I'm your backcountry ski guide, and I'm not sure how we're going to get to the bottom of the mountain, but we've been to the bottom of the mountain a few times, and we're pretty sure we can get there. And so those people who are willing to be bold and take those steps and do it, I know it's difficult. I just divested out of a large bank this year, and have my money in alignment myself, and it's a lot of work. It took me a year. Mm-hmm. And it's completely worth it. It's what will change and heal our communities and our environment in the way that we all want to live.
Thank you so much for sharing. I also appreciate you sharing your narrative and how you got to where you are today. It's very inspirational, and we'll link back to the website, and if there's any other resources, happy to point those out as well. So
Fantastic. I'll share a couple with you. Thank you so much, Lauren, for doing what you do and taking the time to interview people like
absolutely, and best of luck with the book projects. I'm excited to hear more about those. I know that will be feel good, I'm sure, once you're able to, get those out and check that box off. So
It's funny, I don't think I've ever said that publicly on a recording, so it's really nice to have the accountability of doing it. And so for those of you who've written those books, it's a journey.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, again, thank you. I appreciate your time, and we'll link those resources below.
Thank you, Lauren. Have a wonderful day.